What up, though? Uh, Welcome to a late morning edition of AM Opinionated. I'm your man, Momor Mwata Mbonisi, also known as M3, and I ain't even gonna go into the rest of my names because this is the one that really matters for this episode. So first, let me apologize for AM Opinionated being pushed back so late, although it may be more people that listen to it now or that watch it now because of what time it's on. So, because what time I ended up broadcasting this. So it was there's a few reasons why AM Opinionated was so late this morning, and I gotta kind of rush through this so I can get to the actual topic. The thing is, there was a lot going on today, and there's a lot going on in my head. So there was like 4 different topics that crossed my mind to talk about today. All of which I had to go into, I think Dave Chappelle calls it the stare. I go into a trance-like mode myself when I'm thinking about what it is that I'm going to talk about, and I formulate it all in my mind before I ever even talk about it. So, yeah. It took a while because I had to lock in what I was going to eventually talk about. Which is, I'm gonna tell you in a second, but there's a few things I kind of want to hit on first. First is something I want you to remember. Remember these numbers. They're gonna have meaning later on. 47.8 million and 1.4 trillion. Remember those numbers? They're gonna have meaning and significance later on. So that is what I want you to remember. I want you to remember 47.8 million and 1.4 trillion, right? All right. There's a story I want to tell you. It's an old African proverb, and pretty much goes like this. So there was this little bird that would fly around the jungle, and when this little bird would came across this village that was like, what are you doing, little bird? And so the little bird would tell him about these exploits that he had and how he conquered and defeated this great male lion. And it's like, really, it was you that defeated this great male lion. Okay, that's cool. And so one of the little boys in the village asked his father, it was like, Father, is it true that this little bird defeated this great male lion? How can that be true? How did he do this? And the father told him, son, until the lion comes into our village and tells us his side of the story, we will never know. So yeah. So I decided that I was going to talk about Black Friday, since today is Black Friday. Made sense. You know what I'm saying? Actually, I had to be reminded because it was really early in the morning that I decided this. And I decided that I would talk about Black Friday just because it made the most sense to talk about. But I did have to actually be reminded that today was Black Friday. Like I said, it was early. I hadn't had any coffee. But once I came to the realization that today was Black Friday, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense to talk about Black Friday. So there's a lot of people who are confused about what Black Friday truly originally represents. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about specifically the coinage of the term Black Friday, which is where a whole lot of so-called woke colonizers, a whole lot of so-called woke white people will say, oh, that's not the, well, we're going to get into it, right? So the term Black Friday, not even just Black Friday, but so-called historical textbooks and 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 history classes tend to get real liberal and oftentimes poetic with what happened in human past. Like history and human past, when it's told from certain little birds, they get creative and poetic in the story. You dig? So when you're talking about human past, you got to get all sides, or else you're not really getting a real depiction of the story, So this is my thing to add a little bit of clarity to what we got going on here. And what do we got going on here? Right. We got different people wanting to give a whole lot of different stories to confuse you. Those who they cannot convince, they'll deal with confusion, right? So, all right, what are some of the stories of Black Friday? So what is Black Friday? Despite popular opinion, man, Black Friday was not always about the day that you can get a 75-inch for the dirt. It just wasn't. It's more to it than that. And that particular part of it didn't even come about until like the 70s, that part didn't even come about until the 70s, right? So, I'm sorry, to the 80s. That part came out around the 80s. So let's go through some of the stories that brung Black Friday about, right? Again, just because if you have a nation that told you about Christopher Columbus and that led and put in textbooks and taught children that Christopher Columbus discovered America, why are they going to tell you the truth about Black Friday? They not, because so let's keep this in mind. You know what? I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So let's go back to the 19th century, 1869, September 4th. These two cats, these two investors, I believe they were, a cat named Jay Gould and James Fisk, right? Bought up a bunch of gold, right, to drive up the prices of gold, right, and ended up screwing up all of Wall Street. So it was a bunch of Wall Street barons and farmers, for real, that went bankrupt as a result of this, because they screwed up the gold market. So they tried to corner the market, screwed all of Wall Street up. It ended up being one of the coinages of Black Friday, or where Black Friday supposedly came from. Then you jump to 1951. So in 1951, you had a lot of factory employees that had Thursdays off because of Thanksgiving and was like, man, I ain't going back to work on Friday. You crazy? I'm staying home Friday too. And so it became a thing about factory absenteeism, which again affected the money. It always goes back to the money. So, so it was talking about factory absenteeism that bled into uh, cops in Philly uh, because of the headaches they was getting, because of the angst that they was feeling when this influx of people came into their city to watch the Army Navy game, right? So the Army Navy game is, I believe, like the oldest college football game to be played. They play it every year on the Saturday, like it'll come on this Saturday. You won't see it because it only matters if you're like 80 years old. You know, like everybody else gonna be watching Clemson, Alabama, all the teams that's relevant in college football today. Army Navy is not relevant today, but it was relevant 90, 100 some odd years ago. It was relevant in the late 19th century. You know, uh, so there was this influx. They would come in for Thanksgiving, stay through till the Saturday's game, but Friday, that Friday in between Thanksgiving and the Saturday college football game, people realized that they was that the retailers in the city was getting an influx of people that was buying their stuff. However, the reason the police didn't like it is because there was also an influx of crime. So it was a bunch of people that was shoplifting. It was a bunch of people that was loitering. There was just a bunch of people, and so they inevitably ended up coining this day Black Friday as a result of the headaches and the frustration. Now, my whole thing about these first two things, is the fact that when you're coining phrases, right? Why is it more often than not that when it's something bad, you put black in front of it? Just think about the different phrases that have negative connotations in regards to black, right? So, black ball means you have been ousted from a certain thing. Black Friday, you know, uh, which for real, it may mean that you're gonna get this 75-inch you want for the dirt, but it also means you might end up having to punch somebody in the face because you got the last 75-inch. Somebody about to come in and is like, is that the last 75-inch? Man, and they're gonna grab your 75-inch, and what's your natural instinct? Your natural instinct is to protect yourself and your soon to be property. You dig? And so it's a whole lot of chaos that ensues on Black Friday. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it misconstrued like Black Friday is just this, oh, they're trying to give us discounts and deal days. We're gonna get to that though, right? So we've hit the financial destruction of Wall Street on what ended up being turned Black Friday. We've hit how cops termed it Black Friday because of the headaches that the people gave them. I'm not saying they was all black people. I'm just saying it was people, but you gave a negative coinage to something that was a headache to you, right? Which leads me to one of my theories, right? So one of my theories is the reason why wait a minute. Let me get to the 80s first. Now that I think about it, let me get to the 80s first. Because in the 80s, that's when retailers started realizing, kind of nationally that, hey, on the day after Thanksgiving, people really be hitting us up. You know what I'm saying? We making a whole lot of, the profit goes up. Now, this is one of the, I'd suppose, positive coinages when you put black in front of something, right? So Black Friday in this sense related to the fact that when they would write in the books of whether something was whether you had a profit or a loss, profits were always written in black and losses were written in red. So that's why when they say, "Oh, you in the red," that's why they say that, because your losses was written in the red while profits was written in black, right? So that's why they say in the black. If anybody that's ever watched that one T.I. movie, uh, I forget what it was called. Uh, I forget what it was called, but there was a scene in the movie where one of his partners is goes out to this highfalutin place and meets up with this brother that is talking about how he has spent his fourth quarter in the black, right? And that's what that means, that you had 4 good quarters, right, to where you've made a profit. That's what that means. That's what being in the black means, financially, right? Uh, which leads me to what I believe, right? Um, so I'm saying you got retailers that's like, look, you 48 or 47.8 million black people that have this 1.4 trillion dollars of buying power. Hey, come spend your money with us. Spend your money with us, because we need some of that 1.4 trillion that you're gonna spend this year. You know, you're gonna spend a whole lot of it on Black Friday, because all we doing is leading you from Black Friday to Cyber Monday, which bleeds into Christmas. But this is just the start of it. So we need some of that money going to us on Black Friday, and we're gonna cut you a deal so you'll come and spend it with us, right? So that's my particular theory as to why it's called Black Friday, because you got retailers that are catering to black people because they want some of that $1.4 trillion that that we're gonna spend, right? So keep this in mind too. If black people were to come together and put their money together, we would be the 16th largest on the planet in terms of spending. Trip on that. Like that 1.4 trillion of spending power that black people have would be the 16th largest on the planet. On the planet. Yes, the planet. That would be more than the GDP of the rest of the nations beyond 16. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. That's so they won't. They just like, hey, black people, this is a day where you're gonna get more bang for your $1.4 trillion buck. Spend it with us. And so all these banners, all these protests, all of the marching and whatnot for Black Lives, great. I love it. I am a proponent of it. I you know what I'm saying? I'm with it. But like I keep saying, it all goes back to the money, right? It all goes back to the money. And so since it all goes back to the money, you got to realize that while it is an absolute tragedy when a black person, a black man, black woman is killed by police because black lives in this nation don't matter, right? The clear and present danger to the black community is the wealth gap. And if you think the wealth gap is gonna slim itself, it's not. You know, it needs help. It needs the effort of everybody to come together and start buying black, right? Which this is Buy Black Weekend. So go to nbuffkc.com, or go to buyblack.com, and you can see it all. You know what I'm saying? You can see where you can start helping your community by buying black, right? I know it's a buy black. It's got to be a buy black in any black populated city in the nation. So, and if it's not, start one. You know, my guy Killer Mike, I watched his documentary. You know, and I watched pretty much everything Killer Mike put out. He tried to go, I think it was 3 days buying black. And so I realized how difficult it is, because he had a difficult time living completely and buying completely black to sustain all of his needs. Well, why couldn't he do it? Why couldn't most people do it? Why can't most people do it? Because we don't own a whole lot. We don't own a whole lot of the things that we need as a community to survive on a daily basis. Period. That's what it boils down to, right? So, like I said, all the protests over Breonna, over George Floyd, over all these people who were whose lives were taken senselessly, you know, and who need justice. While all that's fantastic, the daily threat is the threat to your wallet, because how many of y'all, if something happened right now, if there was an emergency that happened right now, could just go to your bank, take out $500 and fix it without having to rob Peter to pay Paul? I'll wait. Yeah, my watch is black too. Like, everything I got on is black. It's all black everything today. I would have worn my all black everything hat, but I just figured that the Black Lives Matter hat made more sense to what I was talking about today, because of the last part that I'm going to get to, which is so here's the thing. Black Friday is the extension of Thanksgiving, right? And the US, at the time that, you know, Thanksgiving was being originated, you know, at the time that Thanksgiving, and I ain't even talking about when these so-called pilgrims touched, I'm talking about a little bit after that, right? But I'm still talking about the late 18th, early 19th, the late 19th, early 20th century, right? The United States was a slave nation. You know, it was a slave society. So to think that anything having to do with anything in regards to U.S. culture that didn't have to do with slavery, get out of here. That's preposterous. It just wasn't going to happen. Slavery was part of everything that the United States was. George Washington owned 300 slaves. You know what I'm saying? I think upon his death, owned 300 slaves. You dig? So you got that mixed with the fact that at this time, despite popular opinion that the Civil War was some North-South stuff and the South was Confederate and everybody in the North was abolitionists and wanted to free slaves, negatory. And so the whole thing that, you know, the Civil War was about freeing the slaves, and man, stop it. Just stop. You know, it was about the money. It was always about the money. Slavery came, and freeing the slaves came as an afterthought. It was an afterthought of, well, instead of just putting these slaves out front to be fodder, so these colonizers don't get shot, how about we lure them to the North, give them asylum, you know, and let them know, hey, if you fight for us, you know, you'll be fighting for your freedom. We'll get you your freedom if you fight for us, you know. While the South needed the slaves, 4 million of them at this particular point in time, you know, because let's face it, in the South, what was the whole thing going on in the South? Why did the South need slaves? Because they got plantations. These plantations need workers. These 4 million slaves worked these southern plantations, which is why the South was like, you know what? We don't really even need y'all. We got our own economy down here and can sustain ourselves. We succeed. In the hell with y'all. We gone, right? You want to take our slaves? You want to cut our money? Stop messing with a man's money. You know what I'm saying? Is what these Southern plantation owners were saying. Stop trying to mess with our money. So as long as y'all keep trying to mess with our money, we will secede. We got our own president, and we'll go to war with you. We'll go to war with all you cats. We don't care. Why? Because we got the money to do it. Because we getting free slave labor from 4 million people. We got free slave labor from 4 million people. You know what I'm saying? So our overhead is like nothing. We getting free labor. So we need that. So if you think that Black Friday, hey man, at this time slaves was a commodity, a trading or a traded commodity, right? Which means that they sold slaves on any day that ended in Y. It didn't have to be just Friday. You could have called it anything. You could have called it Black Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They sold slaves on any day that ended in Y, period. So if you think Friday was any different, if you think Black Friday was any different, you're crazy. So even if it wasn't named necessarily Black Friday, that was the psychology and the social climate of the United States at the time. So will I sit here and claim to say that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that on the Friday after Thanksgiving, that when slaves were sold, that it was called Black Friday? Nah, I'm not gonna say that because I don't know. You know, we need a lion to come back into the village and let us know whether it was actually called Black Friday or not, because all we got is birds telling us a story, you know. However, if there was a dude named John Doe, right? Let's say it was a John Doe that killed men, raped women, and molested children, right? But he changed his name to John Ode. Does that make him innocent? Same dude, same crimes, right? Does that make him innocent? Because John Doe changed his name to John Ode. We gonna let an anagram make him innocent? Does an anagram make him innocent now because he changed his name? Nah. So you can call it whatever the hell you wanted to call it. You know what I'm saying? It was still Black Friday because Thanksgiving was a festive rite. You know what I'm saying? They were thankful. This particular definition of Black Friday, they were thankful for the harvest, right? They were thankful for the fact that they were still alive and that these Native Americans didn't kill them, right? So they was thankful for that. They was thankful that the Native Americans even showed them how to plant, how to harvest to begin with. You know what I'm saying? So they was thankful for all that. But if you think for 1 second that after the festival, that after the feast, that after all the partying and the good time, that they wasn't gonna go back to business as usual after the fact, you tripping, right? You tripping. So that applied to Black Friday, and that applied to the commodity that was known as slaves at that time, right? So so whether they actually called it Black Friday or not, it still goes back to slavery, because the United States has a slave culture. It's a slave nation, you know. And while we've come out of that to call it Black Friday, when you had retailers in the 80s during this whole thing that was like, might not want to call it Black Friday. Black people might not give us our money if we call it Black Friday, because they may see a negative connotation to it. So they tried to change it to Big Friday. They tried to change Black Friday to Big Friday in the 80s, right? There was all these ads talking about Big Friday. It's the same as Black Friday. But they tried to change the name because they didn't want black people to be offended, right? But when Big Friday didn't take, they stuck with Black Friday, right? They stuck with what fit, right? So all of the so-called woke colonizers that don't want to believe that Black Friday goes back to slavery, whatever, you know, it still do. Black Friday still has the stench of slavery whenever you get done, whether it was called Black Friday or not. John Doe, John O Day. Remember, it all goes back to the money, right? Remember that. Remember that there is still a wealth gap, you know, and remember this. The black dollar stays in, what is it, the Asian community for 28 days, right? Stays in the white community for 17 days, stays in the Jewish community for like 20 days or 19 days, stays in the black community for 6 hours. 6 hours is how long it stays. So like I said, all the marching, all the protests, all the banners, that's cool. Let's make some banners and do some protests for this wealth gap. You know, let's try to fix that. Let's try to spend that $1.4 trillion where it's going to do some help for the community and not for everybody else's community. You know what I'm saying? Bye, Black KC. I'm out.